Earlier this month, the outgoing French ambassador to Washington made the headlines by saying something that should be obvious. Israel is already an apartheid state. Although that diplomat's candor was refreshing, his analysis skipped some salient points. For example, he did not acknowledge that the foundations of Israel's apartheid system were laid in Europe, with more than a little help from the state that he represents. The Zionist movement has long been dedicated to a colonization project. That project could only be advanced through treating Palestine's indigenous people as inferior to incoming settlers. More than 100 years ago, the Zionist project was endorsed by two major European powers, France and Britain. France was the first to do so. In 1917, Jules Cambon, a senior figure in the French Foreign Ministry, sent a letter to the Zionist movement. Jules Cambon wrote that it would be a work of justice and reparation for the Allied forces to help the renaissance of the Jewish nationality on the land from which the Jewish people had been exiled so many centuries ago. Later that year, 1917, Britain also sent a letter to the Zionist movement. Arthur James Balfour, then Britain's Foreign Secretary, pledged to support the establishment of a Jewish national home in Palestine. The Balfour Declaration, as that letter became known, was subsequently enshrined in the League of Nations mandate under which Britain ruled Palestine between the two world wars. Britain took its commitments to Zionism seriously. Britain took its commitments so seriously that it ruthlessly crushed resistance by Palestinians to the discrimination and the dispossession that they encountered. By doing so, Britain enabled the mass expulsion of Palestinians by Zionist forces in 1948. Israel's nation-state law bears a resemblance to the Balfour Declaration. Israel's nation-state law grants the right of self-determination only to Jews. Palestinians living in Israel are, by definition, accorded a lower status. Arthur Balfour had similar ideas. Soon after his declaration was issued, Balfour confirmed that the principle of self-determination would be denied to Palestinians. Arthur Balfour regarded Zionist colonization to be, in his words, of far profounder import than the desires and prejudices of the 700,000 Arabs who now inhabit that ancient land. Israel's nation-state law is therefore the logical consequence of a project that was to a large extent planned here in London. The nation-state law confirms that Israel is an apartheid state. Most, if not all of us, knew that previously. And yet that is a reality which the European public elite would prefer to conceal. How did Federica Mogherini, the European Union's foreign policy chief, react to Israel's nation-state law? Federica Mogherini described the law as, first and foremost, a matter of how Israel chooses to define itself, adding that we fully respect the internal Israeli debate on this. My friends, what does this mean? It means that a top-level European Union representative fully respects Israel's decision to come out as an apartheid state. Now, perhaps Federica Mogherini and her colleagues are taking a slightly different approach behind the scenes. Last year, the Israeli government reportedly reprimanded Emanuela Joffre, the head of the European Union's embassy in Tel Aviv. Emanuela Joffre had apparently expressed concern about the nation-state law when chatting with a number of politicians from Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party. And if press stories are accurate, the main concern of the European Union's ambassador was about how the law could potentially damage Israel's reputation. Since then, Emanuela Joffre has been eager to downplay any friction between him and the Israeli government. In a recent article for the Jerusalem Post, Emanuela Joffre argued that while Israel and the European Union may have differences of opinion, we cannot allow them to overshadow our entire relations. What was this ambassador really saying? The relations between the European Union and Israel are underpinned by a so-called association agreement which came into effect about 19 years ago. And according to that agreement, having strong relations between Israel and the European Union is conditional on respect for human rights. Israel violates the basic rights of the Palestinian people every single day. Occasionally, the European Union voices mild unease about such violations of human rights. And, judging by his Jerusalem Post article, the European Union's ambassador in Tel Aviv does not believe that human rights should, in his words, overshadow trade and other forms of cooperation. He was effectively telling Israel that no matter what injustice it inflicts on the Palestinians, the European Union will keep on hugging Israel tighter. For that is exactly what has been happening until now. Over the past decade, Israel has incrementally made its apartheid system more extreme, and the European Union has responded by rewarding Israel. Israel, for example, has been granted more trade preferences and a deeper involvement in the European Union's very lucrative programme for scientific research. My friends, Britain, as you may have noticed, has a less than harmonious relationship with the European Union at the moment. Yet despite the tensions evident throughout the Brexit soap opera, the fact remains that Britain has left a discernible mark on the European Union and its policies. Britain has played an especially prominent role in shaping the European Union's foreign policies. Some of these policies have had very harmful consequences. Britain, for example, provided much of the funding and personnel to establish a European Union police operation, which has served to strengthen Israel's grip on the occupied West Bank. Nobody seems to know, as far as I can see, when Britain will leave the European Union. And despite, or perhaps because of that uncertainty, the British Trade Secretary, Liam Fox, signed a new trade agreement with Israel in February. That agreement was designed to make sure that Israel's trade with Britain will not be damaged by Brexit. And both Britain and Israel are planning further talks about boosting their commercial relations. What kind of a message has Liam Fox sent? The implicit message is that regardless of how racist and violent Israel becomes, it can still count on Britain's support. My friends, so long as Britain and Europe's political leaders keep on embracing Israel, it will fall to ordinary people to take action. That is why boycotting and isolating Israel have become more urgent than ever. Thank you very much.